All right, guys, welcome back to the Backstop. Coming at you strong once again. Benny Bam here with you visually, and of course, the Doctor of Baseball, the Velvet Voice, Eric Lindenberg is here with me and you audibly. So we're going to do a show like that today. So, guys, we haven't had a Backstop in a long while, but it's so good to be back. And we are back to discuss all the craziness that's happened. We obviously had a short lockout. They got a little nasty for a minute between players and owners, and obviously the commissioner being involved as the in-between man on that, even though he's really on the owner's side. All those things happened. Now we're in a player frenzy because that had frozen all transactions. So now that everything has been lifted, we have a season. They're going to end up playing a full season. We have some rule changes that were also implemented. There's also going to be minor league stuff implemented. And baseball has now also added to its collective bargaining agreement the ability to change the rules on a year-by-year basis if they see fit. So that they don't have to go through decades of bargaining on a simple topic to be able to make rule changes and implement things and test them in the minors before they bring them up and all those kinds of things. So that's going to be important for the game to be able to adapt and evolve into the future, obviously. Whether you agree with all the rule changes or not, the fact of the matter is that they have to have a mechanism by which to be able to do it if they need to for good and bad reasons. So that's great that they now have that mechanism in there. And now we'll talk about all the player movement and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, Eric, there's so much on the table. But first, we're going to start with your Dodgers, man. I got to tell you, obviously the Dodgers have had a great team, World Series team. A few years ago, obviously they were that close on all the years in between over the last five or so, division after division after division. And what goes better with that than adding a guy like Freddie Freeman, the rich get richer in LA? Initial thoughts on adding Freddie to that stacked Dodgers lineup, Eric? Stacked.
Yeah, stacked it is. When you have players that are all-stars, they're going to be sitting on the bench, and you have a guy like Freeman, who clearly throughout his career has been the team leader on the Braves, clutch hitter, World Series winner. Why they let him go, I don't know. There had to be some bad blood there in the negotiations. But adding Freeman to the Dodgers lineup allows them to use Max Muncy as a DH when necessary. And Max was kind of created to be a DH when you think about it. The other thing, they were real smart to re-sign Chris Taylor, who has done nothing but great things for them and can play anywhere. I'm a little worried about Justin Turner. I don't know that he's the same Justin Turner who was 3 years ago. And this is the last year of his contract. The other question, and this is something I had from a listener, what about Kenley Jansen? No talk about him, no discussion about signing him. And my listener suggests Julio Urias, maybe the Dodgers closer this year. They've got a lot of starters, and Urias as a closer has been outstanding when they've needed him. So Gratterall might not be ready, but what a shocker that would be if the last 20-game winner in the major leagues is now a closer. It's happened before with Dennis Eckersley and John Smoltz, but wow, Urias coming out of the bullpen, and he can also go 2 and 3 innings out of the pen if needed. So,
absolutely,
adding Freeman, though, we were talking before the show, Dodgers have a big problem. Where to bat him in the order? Well, if I was Dave Roberts and that was my worst problem, I'd be a pretty happy guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not as much of a problem as a lot of teams have of trying to figure out which guys to even put in their lineup, depending on the teams. But a flurry of frenzied stuff going on. We've got all kinds of stuff. Olsen obviously going. The A's suddenly are having a fire sale now. They've decided, hey, we're going to take advantage and strike while the iron's hot, and all these teams are really desperate right before the shortened season starts, right after a lockout. And we're going to trade Matt Chapman. We're going to trade Olsen. We're going to trade all these guys that have been, this is the signature Billy Beane move. Is he does this every few years. He develops these guys. He gets all these draft picks. He gets all these young minor leaguers for his major league guys that are about to have expiring contracts because he knows he's not going to pay him. He knows when he gets them, he's not going to pay him. He's not going to pay him even if he signs them to a deal when they're there. He's not going to pay them. He signs them to a deal basically for someone else because he knows that by the time all it comes due on the dates that he's going to owe money, that person will no longer be on the roster and he will have traded them for some other asset that he can then use to maintain the low budget for some odd reason that the A's still operate under, even though they are in the California which, you know, has other great teams just across the bay even. So kind of frustrating, but Billy somehow competes every year and gets in there and figures out a way with not much, but, you know, other people's scraps and just a great people department as far as development, drafting, you know, scouring other teams with scouts to see what their talent is when they make these trades. He's been on the money so many times that, you know, I don't doubt that he probably got some kind of steal out of some of these deals that he just did. He got a lot back for a couple of these guys. They got a lot back for Chapman. They got a lot back for Olson. So another little quick reset by Oakland in the Billy Beane era. And what it gets is a lot of really good talented players that run their team onto teams that are, you know, contenders. So that's going to be huge. We also see the Yankees get a guy like Josh Donaldson to add to their lineup that, again, not a lineup that really needed a whole lot of help, but they do give up Gary Sanchez in the process of doing that. So, I mean, you know, you got to give to get a little bit there. Eric, what are your thoughts on some of these other moves we've seen, you know, around the MLB? Is there a particular one that stands out? I'll just mention a couple more real quick. Chris Bryant signed in Colorado. A lot of people thought he might stay in San Francisco or go elsewhere to a team that had some money, maybe, you know, so he ends up going to Colorado. That one was one that a lot of people didn't understand because they're not necessarily considered like a win now team. You know, there's other ones that are still out there. We're still waiting on Correa, Story to sign. Obviously, we know Freeman now. Olson not only got traded, but they got an extension. So just all kinds of stuff going on. And Danny Duffy just got announced he's going back to the Dodgers as well.
Another starter for the Dodgers. Let me go back to Olson for a second. Now, there's no arguing that he had a great season last year and has turned into one of the better hitters in the American League. But does he compare to Freddie Freeman year after year, consistently for 10 years? I don't think so. And why the Braves gave him an 8-year deal when they wouldn't give Freddie 6, it's beyond me. There had to be some kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication with the front office there.
Freeman did get the biggest hit in the biggest game, and the team won the World Series too.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, and I know the fans in Georgia are really upset. You know, time will fly, and Matt Olson will be accepted there, but still, I just don't see it. I didn't see it coming, and I don't think Olson and Freeman are in the same league. No pun intended. The other thing, Chris Bryant with Colorado, that surprised me because I thought a lot of teams would be really raring to go for Chris Bryant, but he winds up in Colorado. The other one is Jock Peterson going to San Francisco. Now, we talked about Jock a lot on this show, and he's one of those guys that during the season, he will have an average to mediocre year. But come the postseason, he's going to be slamming home runs. In the 20 World Series, the last couple games, Tampa wouldn't even pitch to him. You know, they just walked him. We're not going to take a chance on Jock. So Peterson in San Francisco is a good fit. I think given a chance to play every day, he might start hitting left-handers. He did when he first came up with the Dodgers. I don't know what happened to him, but the guy can play. He's popular. His popularity has grown tremendously. Maybe it was the pearls during the World Series. I don't know. But,
maybe. Could be. It could be those pearls.
Yeah. I mean, he's nothing but a good addition to any team he goes to. And being in the same outfield with Mike Yastrzemski and Darren Ruff, I guess the plan is for him and Ruff to platoon. But the Giants, everyone thinks it was a fluke that they did it last year. Giants know how to play, and Gabe Kapler is a good manager. Knows what he has, knows what his players, knows what buttons to push with his players. So don't look for the Giants to be out of it this year.
Yeah, and the Brewers also got Andrew McCutchen a few days ago. The Royals brought back Zach Greinke, which was an interesting one. He obviously won a Cy Young there back in the day before, you know, that kind of small to medium market team dealt him because they couldn't really afford him anymore. Just really interesting moves. Braves re-signed Eddie Rosario. Kyle Schwarber ends up going to the Phillies. Obviously, that's an interesting one. He's got a power bat. Guy who plays the outfield, used to catch. And Jonathan Villar, the versatile infielder that has a power bat, goes to the Cubs, who are still trying to kind of slowly but quickly rebuild under David Ross there. Angels actually, don't worry, my Angels fans, I didn't forget about you guys. But Angels actually today added many relief options, and some of them are pretty good. Archie Bradley added on a one-year deal. Ryan Tepera, who was on the White Sox last year. The Cubs also pitched really well last year for both of those teams. He gets signed to a one-year deal, and they've signed a couple other minor league guys to help fill out that bullpen behind Raciel Iglesias, who they also brought back before the lockout started. So Cesar Valdez, they just signed to another minor league deal just over the last few minutes here. Just all kinds of stuff. Dodgers re-signing Jimmy Nelson. That one also just came through. And yeah, so we're still kind of waiting to hear on what's going on with Trevor Bauer, another Dodger topic for you, Eric. Trevor Bauer obviously was not indicted, I believe would be the proper way to say it, on the charges that were brought against him. So it sounds like that was thrown out. And whether or not anything civil follows there or any further action will take place, I don't know that that necessarily admonishes his behavior or says necessarily that he is innocent, but it does say that that legal process in terms of its life is now over. Because now it's ended. Obviously people can appeal in our system, which is why it's great, is because you can get things overturned that could be wrong. But who knows what the truth actually is? It was kind of a he said, she said thing that involved some kinky stuff and got Mr. Bauer looked at in a way that has had him suspended. Although he's been getting paid on what they call administrative leave, it just got extended again through at least April 16th. While I think MLB tries to figure out with the review, they always kind of wait till last minute with punishment to just let every single thing that could possibly play out before they finally decide on possible punishments or suspensions or fines or anything of that nature. And remember, baseball also, not that I'm saying I think they'll do that here, but they're also one of the few sports that will permanently ban people for stuff. So that's also always interesting when you see situations play out with legal processes, because you just never know what it means and how it reflects and how they're going to take it. And if they decide to set a precedent this time, but they don't that time. So who knows what could ever happen with stuff, right? So I don't think that'll happen to Trevor Bauer. He may get some suspension for the personal conduct type deal and just being involved in this. But when somebody gets acquitted and it gets thrown out, as far as not necessarily acquitted, but it doesn't get, you don't get indicted, they don't proceed, they don't have enough to go and convict you or don't feel like they do, then it certainly makes you take a step back. I don't know what'll happen here as far as that goes, Eric, but what's your feeling about Bauer coming back with the Dodgers now that this situation is starting to kind of get behind him in some way?
I have heard several Dodgers, including Clayton Kershaw, say that they never want Bauer to set foot in their clubhouse again. So that tells you how the players feel. He wasn't a popular guy to begin with. And it's as simple a thing as this. First day of spring training, he showed up, went walking by, saw Kershaw and said, "How does it feel not to be the ace anymore?" You don't win teammates and friends by doing that. He's an abrasive kind of person to begin with. And to tell you the truth, my personal feeling is I hope he gets banned for life. I really do. Whether that whole thing was consensual or not, you don't do that. You just don't do that. Put a woman in the hospital. I dislike Bauer strongly, and I hope he's done. I really do. I hope he shuts his Twitter account and just shuts up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, I've heard that same thing from a few people, but just speaking straight from he does have a contract, so I mean they can't just ignore that. I mean, he has a contract. If he gets acquitted and baseball doesn't really have much to go on, maybe they do suspend him briefly for the personal conduct policy, or if they're really hard on him, maybe half a year or maybe a full year or something like that. That eventually he will come back. And I think after this year, he had a third year on his Dodger deal that I forget if it was team or player option, or it could be a combination of both. In baseball, they do that sometimes too. So who knows how this is going to play out? I guess we're still waiting to see. Certainly when you look at the Dodgers team, I mean, they're deep enough to not need Bauer, but then you add, just speaking from a talent standpoint, him back into the rotation, and that just changes everything, because now you've got guys like May and Urias able to go to the bullpen and do other things, because you've got a guy in Bauer who's going to go 7 and probably, at most give up 3 or 4 at the very most. And when he's on, he's a shutout or a 1-run type of pitcher, obviously Cy Young pitcher. So
baseball is, trying to regain its popularity. Can you imagine if Bauer's reinstated, the first game he starts at whatever stadium he's at? Can you imagine the reception he's going to receive? He won't care, but I don't believe he is a favorite of the fans right now, as if he ever was. But like I said, if I never hear his name again, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So certainly we'll see how it plays out. I mean, who knows if he's going to end up actually pitching, and whether or not that would even be for the Dodgers at this point. Who knows? Sounds like they are getting closer and closer, though, to figuring some stuff out as far as however it will end up proceeding. All kinds of crazy stuff. I know that I know that my Angels fans out there have been very frustrated because they feel like Artie could do more. I hear this constantly all the time. And then when he does spend money, he's a positional overspender and all this kind of stuff. Although I will say I have heard that the Angels could be finalists for Carlos Correa, who obviously was a member of the Houston Astros. A lot of Angels fans came under fire for that because Mike Trout pretty much had come out, and even around before that. But Mike Trout specifically came out and said, I wish I knew it was coming every time. That would have been cool. And these players should have been punished. He had said that shortly after all of that transpired and kind of everything came out. And the punishments had been kind of come out and didn't really seem to really fit the crime on the right people and all of that kind of stuff. But of course, the players union went to bat and said, you're not punishing the players. And we saw what happened, and most of those managers are now back, and all that's been since resolved, even though there was draft pick, and penalties and things like that for a couple teams. So, I mean, with all of that, kind of interesting. But I mean, there's no denying Carlos Correa is a talented man. He's one of the best shortstops in the game. He's one of the best hitters at his position, probably as far as the game goes as well. He can hit for power. He can hit to all fields. He's a clutch hitter. He's a valued guy. He's an experienced guy. He can hit in all types of parks. I mean, the dude he's got range at shortstop. I don't know that he's the best defensive shortstop, but he's definitely a good shortstop. I mean, no doubt. All-star caliber, potential MVP. I mean, if he hit the right year, he could be an MVP, no doubt. No, I mean, he has the kind of talent, if he can stay on the field, to do that.
I would love to see the Angels sign Correa. I really would. I want to go back to Trout for a second.
Yeah.
He is routinely criticized by MLB for not doing their marketing the way they want to and being in ads like Bellinger and the guy from Milwaukee were. Trout does not do that. Okay. He plays the game on the field and that's it. The one time he said anything during this lockout, wow, did they come down on him. And all he said was, we're trying to get back to playing, basically. I just can't understand it, why they come down on Trout like that.
Certainly.
Do you have any idea?
Well, if you listen to a lot of the player reps, and of course, there's always contradicting stuff coming out from both sides. I mean, it's pretty much like a media cold war when they're going through one of these lockouts and stuff. But the players maintain that they've been united this whole time. They knew what they wanted coming in, and that's one of the reasons why they were so sure when they went into the talks. They knew what they wanted. They knew what they were willing to give in on, and that they were kind of united no matter how far they had to end up compromising or whatever, that they were united in what their approach was going to be. Right. And certainly when that happens, your biggest voices are going to be the most. And look, and one of the things I absolutely love about Mike Trout is that, Eric, this when you hear that, right? Without a shadow of a doubt, that it's not political. It has nothing to do with anything but this. Mike Trout loves to play baseball and wants to get back on the field and play baseball.
That's right.
He already was out most of last year with an injury that he hated, but his team was so bad, it made no sense for him to come back with like a month left in the season. It just, why would you do that? Let Shohei shine. Let him get the accolades. They're not going to win anything anyway. And then they've kind of been able to rebuild a little bit of their pitching staff this offseason. We'll see if it's enough. If they could get somebody like Correa, it might put them over the top, or it could set them back financially even further, because we're still waiting to see dividends from the Rendon deal that we still haven't seen the last 2 years. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. We know that Rendon is a good player when he's healthy. I don't doubt that. It's just like Noah Syndergaard. I hear Angels fans going, well, they still haven't done anything with pitching. Do you guys have any idea how good Noah Syndergaard is? Do you have any idea how good he is? He is so good.
Stud.
He is a stud. He is an ace quality pitcher. The reason why you don't know his name is because there was a guy named Jacob deGrom in front of him in the rotation, who's one of the best pitchers in the history of baseball, right? He is so filthy, it's just ridiculous, right? And now he's got Max Scherzer behind him, which is even more. They actually have a great 5-man rotation, but those two is just insane, right? And the Angels were actually in on Scherzer too, but they didn't want to give him a third year. Neither did the Dodgers. A lot of teams were like, because Max is up there in age already, even though he certainly can still pitch. That's not what they're getting at. It's just that pitchers tend to only be able to last so long mileage wise, throwing the way that these guys throw at the top level like that. So it's just so interesting to me though, because but there is always a lot of ifs. If this guy's healthy, But what I always go back to is their career meeting, right? What did they do before? Anytime they have been healthy, what can we expect? And if you were to say that Rendon and Syndergaard can give you any semblance of what they were when they were healthy prior, that's pretty good. And if you can add that to an MVP that's still getting a lot better in Shohei Ohtani, people forget this guy is 25 years old. And to still prime Mike Trout, who's barely 30. I mean, and Mike's itching to get back out there and prove that he still belongs. They were talking about moving him out of center field, and they had a meeting between everybody, and he said, "What do I have to do to prove you guys I still deserve to be in center field?" And they looked at each other and said, "Never mind, you're in center field." That's Mike Trout. He's Mike Trout. If hey, you want to play center field and take a little bit more risk with your career, that's okay, because you're a tank. I mean, he hasn't really had injuries until the last couple of years. They were silly injuries, but you got to play a position. Maybe now with the DH being in both parks, when they visit to the NL, that'll free up a few more games for him here and there to be able to DH, and then they can throw Marsh or Adele out there in the outfield and stuff. If Adele can learn how to field out there, that would be great first. But yes, they get all that stuff back together, and I'd be really excited. But with all the differences in baseball and all this stuff, one of the things that's been interesting to me is, Nolan Arenado obviously used to be on the Rockies. He's no longer there. They got traded to St. Louis, and Trevor Story played there in Colorado with him. And there's been a lot of talk of Story going to a team that's considered a mid-market team in St. Louis. But we know that Wainwright and Yachty have said this is probably it for them this year. But they're trying to make one final run. It sounds like Trevor Story could be a guy they want to add to that lineup there. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals? I mean, you can never count these guys out, Eric. You just can't do it.
No, and it doesn't matter if they're in last place in June. They will be in the hunt come September. They do it every year. I think they're going to make a good run at it. Wainwright and Molina, especially. Arenado, when he played for Colorado, he put up great numbers. He hasn't done it so far for the Cardinals. Great hitter, but he's one of those guys that will hit 35 home runs and 30 will be solo. So, Trevor Story now is another guy altogether. For some reason, he does not get the respect that you would expect for a guy that puts up his numbers. He's almost an afterthought. I would have thought he'd have been signed a long time ago, but there he sits in Colorado. They have a pitcher in St. Louis named Matt Liberatore. And I mention this because he's from here in Glendale, Arizona. He went to the same high school as my son. And look for him to be the next ace of the Cardinals staff. They picked him up in a minor league deal a couple of years ago. He was the #1 draft pick. And I don't know that he'll make the rotation this year, but he'll be there next year. But the Cardinals will definitely be in the hunt. They always are. They always will be. They're a baseball team, and they're run like a business. So, there's no surprise when things like they let Pujols go in 2011. Much the way that the Braves let Freeman go this year, although there was not nearly as much animosity. But, the Cardinals.
Freeman's younger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm kind
Albert
of
was
hoping.
32. Albert was 32, kind of on the downside. And Freeman is, I think, still 29 or 30, coming off the
Yeah,
World Series.
I'm kind of hoping
Um,
that Albert signs with the Cardinals. I really am.
yeah, I've been hoping that too, especially now that they have the DH. It kind of opens it up a little bit, where like you're like, okay, now Goldschmidt can get his, and all these guys that they've had. They keep adding kind of silently to their lineup, whether it's been Ozuna or whoever it's been over the years. But yeah, or Jason Hayward at one point they had as well, of course. A lot of good guys, but the Cardinals are never going to rest. They're gonna try, and I think sometimes they start a season with a bunch of young talented guys they get, and then they get surprised. They get to like mid-season and realize like they're still in it, and then they'll make a couple moves, and then next thing you know, they've won 15 games in a row, and suddenly the Dodgers are looking at them like, we're
Yeah,
playing you guys. You're playing you guys again,
yeah,
again. And I tell you what, these last few times they played them in the playoffs, that St. Louis has lost, but they scared the Dodgers at both of those times because they were
yeah,
close. For
yeah,
most of those games, they were right there. Some of them they were up, and when you've got guys like Yachty leading your team, it's like so much playoff experience, and you just are looking at it going, man, this could really go either way. And just having more talent sometimes, doesn't even out luck or performance that day. That's the thing about it.
yeah,
When you buy talent, it doesn't always prevail just because of that. Just like the Yankees found out for all those years in between their World Series and stuff, and they're still trying to claw their way back to the top, even though they keep buying all these guys. They still haven't been overcome these teams like Tampa Bay that gets to the World Series instead of them, or which has a budget that's probably half of what Aaron Judge makes alone, by
yeah.
himself. So
That's right.
um, it's just amazing, and then you get teams like Tampa Bay that completely ruin it by using analytics when in the postseason, everybody knows, you could take a good pitcher out you want after two times through the lineup, and you could back it up with analytics because, yes, every pitcher gets worse the third time a hitter sees you and sees the pitches, however many pitches they see. Some, it could be 20 if you had some good at bats. It could be 2 if you flew out the first 2 pitches, whatever. So, I mean, I don't really agree with that. I was listening to a great podcast, guys, that I posted on Angels Baseball Addicts. Which really was the show. It was the Rich Eisen show, and Nolan Ryan he had dialing in like Eric's dialing in here, and Nolan Ryan was talking about how could you imagine if they walked out there before the 5th inning's even over because it's going to the third time in the lineup and they pulled Tom Seaver out of the game, and I thought of you, Eric, because I was like, I can't, or Nolan Ryan for that matter. Can you imagine, the manager walking out in like the fourth, fourth and the third or whatever, and pulling
He
Nolan
wouldn't
Ryan
have
out of
done
the
it. He'd
game?
have been afraid to do that.
He would have been like, no way, dude. He'd be like, no way, I'm going after this. Um, Nolan Ryan said he always started games to finish them, and
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's what you want to hear. So, and clearly, he did that for us for a long time too. So, just amazing stuff. But so much good stuff. A lot of guys out there. There's been all kinds of other stuff. Angels also brought back Kurt Suzuki, which is nice because we need another catcher to go with Max Stassi there, and get some stuff going. Obviously, Will Smith rated the top catcher coming into the season. Eric, I know you and I had talked about that. My argument was, he just doesn't play enough. He's only plays in situational against certain, lefty righty matchups. And then also, because he catches certain pitchers that prefer that. And they kind of split him that way with him and Barnes there. Obviously, Barnes, the longtime Kershaw catcher, and he also does, I think, May and a couple other guys. But most of them are Will Smith. And
Yeah.
obviously, bat-wise, Will Smith is much better than Austin Barnes. That's not really even a competition, even though Barnes has moments where certainly he gets a clutch hit here or there. But, Will Smith, no doubt, a much better all-around player. What are your thoughts on that ranking? Is that more of a projection? Do you think that Will Smith is ready to take over that mantle and become more of the full-time guy for the Dodgers here?
I kind of do. And I was surprised today. The Dodgers on their website projected a lineup for this year, and they have Will Smith batting cleanup. And for a lot of you listeners that don't realize this, last year, Will Smith in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings had the most clutch hits and RBIs than anyone in baseball. So he quietly went out there and got his clutch hits. The guy's good defensively too. I saw him in the Arizona Fall League back when he first started. I remember thinking, Will Smith, that's a perfect name to play in LA, the Fresh Prince. And
Yeah.
sure enough, he's made it up there. So, yeah, I go along with that ranking. I've wavered back and forth, but I go along with it.
Yeah, we went over it, and certainly, my points all were like, well, look at Salvador Perez, and look at this guy and that guy, and there's so many good catchers, and some of them moved. I think Garver got traded this offseason, and some of these guys have moved around. I think Garver's in Texas now, but yeah, because obviously you've got what's his name from the Yankees going to Minnesota in that most recent trade for Donaldson Sanchez. So a lot of moving parts. A lot of moving parts, yeah, and Urshela also was in that trade, which is an underrated part. I don't think people really realize. I'll say one thing. People talk about the Oakland A's and what they do, but in a different division in the same league, the Twins are really that in the Central. I mean, the Twins figure out ways to squeeze, orange juice out of lemons, and I don't know how they do it. But they always have like one or two pitchers that are on men that pitch really well just for them for that 1 year, and then they'll go somewhere else and not pitch that good. Or they have absolutely no shame in checking out the Dodgers scrap pile. They have no shame in that. The Twins will go, hey, right. we'll build half our team off Dodgers guys that were there from last year. Now they don't have room for them because they signed 3 more dudes and drafted a couple guys that came up quicker than they thought because they draft perfectly every single time. So now we're gonna take a couple of those guys, whether it be a couple of the Asian-born pitchers or whoever it is, they'll take whoever the Dodgers don't want. Infielder, okay, no problem. We'll take that guy too. So outfielders, yeah, we love them. So they always do that. But seriously, though, Minnesota is a team to watch out for. They also brought back, they brought in, I believe, Simba as well. So they got Andrew Simmons, which, he's only had a couple decent years hitting. He had one with the Angels, and he's had a couple in his career here and there where he's an okay hitter. And at times he can be a clutch hitter, Andrelton Simmons. But on defense, it's literally like a video game when you watch him play defense, because it's like the ball like seeks him out. It's like if he's somewhere, the ball almost like goes to him. It's like, it's the most ridiculous. And you're just looking, you're like, how does this guy do this stuff? And the tags that he does and just everything. I mean, certainly we've had a lot of great shortstops at the Angels. Jose Iglesias, for a guy his size, can do some amazing things. Reminds me a lot of Omar Vizquel just on defense, the way he moves around and his kind of hand play with the ball and stuff that he can do. And some of them have these little like glove twitches and stuff these guys do. But like, man, it's just so interesting watching Simba because he is just it's just almost like magical. You're just like, how, unbelievable.
It reminds me of the 70s, because back in the 70s, that was normal. If a shortstop hit 240, they were happy because the guy was always a Gold Glove winner. I always think of Mark Belanger and Roger Metzger. Belanger with the Orioles, Metzger with the Astros. Those guys hit 230, 250, 240, but they always won Gold Gloves. They made plays that were seemingly impossible. But times have changed. You had A-Rod come along and play shortstop and hit 39 home runs, and Cal Ripken Jr. So the game has evolved, and they expect a lot of offense out of the shortstops and defense too. So those guys are hard to come by. And a guy like Simmons can get overlooked, but I have a lot of respect for him, and I think the Twins are lucky to get him.
So there is sacrifice because, let's be honest, there wasn't much room in that Dodger lineup, right? So somebody had to go. And the guy that went was the guy that they didn't pay, which was Corey Seager, who goes to Texas, back in our division over here with the Halos. So they also get Marcus Semien as well, who's been great. So they actually signed both of those guys. I think they're probably going to move Semien to second base or third base. So they'll figure that part out. You got 2 really good, talented guys. They'll figure out where to play him. But I'm sure Seager, for the money he signed, is going to be the shortstop, unless he's out one day and then Semien fills in or something like that. But I think he's going to be the guy. So thoughts on losing Seager? Obviously, Trey Turner was acquired as part of that deal last year, and he slides into that shortstop slot, which is not a bad consolation prize.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to miss Seager as much as people think. I mean, Trey Turner won the batting title last year, the Major League batting title. And I know he had a slump there at the end of the season, but he pulled it back up in the postseason. Here's a guy that one of the most talented players. You could make an argument that Turner is actually better than Seager when it comes to base running and defense and things like that. The other thing is a big part of winning, I don't care who you sign, is chemistry. And Texas went out and signed a bunch of big name free agents, but they have to get along. Look at San Diego last year. San Diego was primed to win that division, but the chemistry in the clubhouse was not good. Who's the guy that they signed from? He started out with Baltimore. Can't remember. I don't remember his name. I can't believe it. He's basically the leader of the team, the highest paid. Oh, gosh. Anyway, when things would happen in the clubhouse and he was supposed to be a guy to calm things down, he would get in the middle of it and ramp things up a little bit. So you saw the Padres fall apart the last month of the season last year. And, that's going to happen when your chemistry is off. And this year, the Padres are starting the season without Fernando Tatis Jr., and that's going to hurt them bad. So I don't expect much from them. I just, the Padres are the Padres. They'll still
you know who their manager is, right, Eric?
Who is their manager?
Bob Melvin got the job. So Bob Melvin takes over San Diego. Yep. Tingler, I think, pretty clearly a little overwhelmed at the end of last year with some of the stuff that was going on, whether it was, the Machado Tatis thing, or there's a lot of reports that actually wasn't that serious, but there were other things going on between players and, conduct and things of that nature that, you hear come out. And anyway, so they go to a seasoned veteran like Bob Melvin, who's obviously managed baseball for, I don't know, since it started, maybe something like that. Right?
It's been a long time.
Been a while, right?
I remember him managing for the Mariners back in 2001 and 2. So that's 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think he's had runs with the A's. I think the Brewers. He's had all kinds of runs with different teams as different positions. Some of them as the skipper, some of them as a bench coach, some of them as, I think, positional or base coach or whatever at one point or another. So, we'll see if Bob Melvin can bring some maturity to that clubhouse, figure out what's going on there, and get these guys to, line up. I'm sure it's like trying to get cats to march in a parade, but they're paying a lot of guys a lot of money in San Diego, and it'd be nice to, and it's not like they're not a good team and they can't win a lot of games, but when you're in division with the Dodgers and, if you don't keep up early in the season, it's over.
Yeah.
It's just over.
Yeah.
And you got to hope the Dodgers have, not that you would hope a team has injuries, but you got to hope the Dodgers are forced to use their depth early. You got to hope they have a couple pitchers that are just not performing right, or, something does happen and they have to end up using guys they didn't want to use and pull out of position. Now they do have a lot of depth in their minor leagues, but, those guys don't have a lot of experience, so they can come up and, not have a good month or something. But, you almost have to bank on stuff like that if you're the Padres, because they do have Clevenger coming back. So that's kind of underrated. He was out last year with, I think he had Tommy John. So he will be back. He's still under contract for one more year. So they will get a year of having him, Darvish, Snell, and all these guys together, which, is going to be their best shot. Now the Dodgers add Freeman and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and push more chips into the table. We're not going to pay Seager. So we'll take what we would have paid Seager that if he would have settled for it, and we're going to give it to Freeman. And we're going to pop him in the middle of that lineup. So now we're not as worried if Justin Turner doesn't produce, or Chris Taylor, can't live up to the contract we just signed him to, or anything like that. So anything weird happens, and now you've got Freeman as kind of another insurance policy on the team as well. And then that allows you to move other people around and do different things too. One of the things is that you will not see them do is shift. There you no longer can shift. So you cannot
I'm glad to hear that.
You cannot start any of your infielders in the outfield for any reason. And the infield dirt is the line of demarcation, as Rich Eisen said the other day. The line of demarcation that determines where that line is. So, and you also have to have two guys on each side of the base now. Now, those guys can move around, I believe, still, and it's not considered like a full shift.
Right.
It's just considered, positional movement or whatever at that point. So, interesting. There's also talk of a pitch clock. I believe they were still trying that and trying to figure out how long it should be. They've tried it in the minors a couple times. They keep talking about automatic ball and strike. They did vote that one down for the majors, but in the minors, they have been playing around with that, which I really don't like because it's not super accurate. They haven't got the technology right. So, but certainly when you see guys like Joe West and Angel Hernandez year after year and wonder how God possibly, like the rest of us that get reviews every year when we go to work, you just wonder what it's like when, you know, I guess in our heads, it doesn't actually happen this way, but in my head as a fan, I imagine Rob Manfred sitting there, you know, having this conversation with Angel Hernandez, and he's just too afraid to tell him that he's horrible, that he's awful, that he sucks, that he can't come back, that he should never have been hired in the first place because Angel Hernandez sues them every time they say anything in his direction that he doesn't like, even if it's good. So I don't know. I don't know all the details, but I do know that I would prefer it if Angel Hernandez stick to National League games. I just think that would be fair for everybody. It would just work out. So I just think that would be great. If he could just do that, that would be awesome. Maybe him, Joe West, could alternate crews, you know, switch it up so they're not on the same one because then, you know, some team loses that's not supposed to. So I don't know. It's really interesting. So what do you thought on these rule changes that we've seen? They did get rid of the extra inning runner, phantom runner on second base, which I absolutely hated because you got to earn your way on base, son. You don't get a free base. What's up? I'm like, no, we're not.
Yeah, you know, I hated that too. And I think most baseball fans hated that. Some of these rule changes, I want to say to Rob Manfred, you never played beyond Little League, did you? Because you're turning Major League Baseball into Little League with these rule changes. That run around second was ridiculous. And the other thing, are they still requiring relief pitchers to face three batters? Do you know?
The three batter minimum, I think, stayed. I think that's still in.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm for that. And you might remember initially I was adamantly against it, but I kind of like it now. You know, you have to face three batters and no more one pitch specialty guy coming in. And it changes the strategy of the managers who they're going to bring in. So I like that one. Other rule changes, you know, like you brought up the pitch clock. I understand why there's a pitch clock because you have guys like when Don Sutton was pitching for the Dodgers, he had the attitude that nobody can do anything until I throw the ball, and I'll throw the ball whenever I feel like it. And, you know, he'd be out there for 40 seconds walking around. So I understand the pitch clock. But other than that, I don't think any rule changes are needed, really. You know, I want to go back to Zach Greinke for a second, signing with Kansas City. I was shocked when I heard about that because this is a guy who's going to be Hall of Fame in my mind, no doubt. He's pitched for some of the best teams. He's had great years. And now he goes back to Kansas City. I wish I knew Zach and was able to talk to him and pick his brain and find out why he made that decision. But there he is, back in a Royals uniform.
Yep. Very, very good Royals pitcher, if you remember. Yeah, I mean, it was Cy Young, obviously, but he was that was when he was first coming up. And, the dude's got control, pinpoint control. You know, he does have good stuff, but his stuff is not so much unhittable. It's just he's so good at locating, especially early in his career. He was so good at that. He's having a little more trouble now as his velocity's dipped a little bit. The last few years, he's starting to get a few more games, you know, a year where he gets blown up a little bit here and there. But he can still piece together a game. Like if he's on his A game, he can still get you a 0 or 1 run kind of thing going on and still give you 7, you know, and maybe a little more than that sometimes. But not regularly though. But I mean, you know, a team like the Royals, if he can give them 5 good innings, the way that it is now with bullpens, and now they've even added more pitching roster slots and stuff for these guys to be able to move up and down and maneuver and stuff for the team. So, I mean, you know, if that's the case, then, you know, why not? I would love to have a guy like Zach Greinke you could go to that, you know, has all that dependable experience as long as he can still have a decent ERA and give you a chance to stay in games. I mean, hey,
Oh
why not
yeah.
bring back a fan favorite, in a market where he's been successful?
Speaking of dependable favorites, Clayton Kershaw re-signed with Dodgers. There was all that talk about him wanting to retire in Texas at home. I never bought into any of that, by the way.
No way.
But
No
I
way.
think this is going to be his last season, and I doubt that he's going to start more than 20 games. But with all the moves the Dodgers have made, he wants to go out with a ring, and he might do it this year. But I think this will be Clayton Kershaw's last run around the league, and he'll be there to mentor some of the younger pitchers. But again, I don't see him throwing more than 20 games with that, the elbow and the back issues he's had. So enjoy it if you see Kershaw this year. Enjoy the game because it'll be the last time you see him.
I think it just all depends on how he feels too, and where they are in contention, right? Like if he can help them, and with how stacked they've been these last few years, he has to do less and less than he used to have to do. We all remember when it was him or nothing, it wasn't nothing, but even when it was him and Greinke, it was kind of like, if those two guys didn't dominate, they couldn't really, stay in contention or, win when it mattered and stuff like that. And then at times they had bullpen issues. And then now they've kind of fixed all of that through the farm system and trades and signings and stuff. And since they've had the new ownership group take over from obviously the McCourts, which, I don't know where you go but up from there. So, interesting stuff when all that took place. But now that, they're years removed from that, they've won a World Series. They've been in contention almost every year since. And, it's no coincidence, when you have good ownership, when you have people that want to win, there are penalties for going over the cap and stuff in baseball, but, there are ways to maneuver around that if you really want to win. And if you're, an owner that's willing to invest in your team, and obviously the group that includes Magic and a bunch of other people now, have done a great job of making sure that, the Dodgers are going to remain in contention, even long after Kershaw's gone. So that's what's great about it. Now they've got May, and obviously Buehler's their next, he's their current, not next, he's their current ace.
Yes.
He's the guy, he's taken the mantle. He's gotten it from Kershaw directly. Kershaw knows, that is going on and supports it, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, it's great to see it kind of work out organically like that. I kind of feel like the Angels did that from kind of the Lackey to the Weaver. And then, it was supposed to be, the way that it worked out with Garrett Richards, and, one bad fall going to first base later, and it just ruins it all. And you're just never able to see it happen. And then maybe, from then it would have went to Richards to Ohtani or something like that. Who knows? But, it's interesting to see how things play out. And you're only ever really one injury away, which is why it's never a guarantee. But when you have all those resources behind you, Eric, like the Dodgers do, and obviously the Yankees do, the Padres have a lot more. They used to, the Padres, for people that, and are going, this is really cool to see them competing with the Dodgers. It didn't used to be like this. I mean, there were years where they would come up and try to compete, but, especially when they had Gwynn and all that, and Hoffman and all those guys, but not, not like this. I mean, this is like, now they're really spending money and really making moves, and they make a lot of moves of the Padres. So they're not afraid to trade somebody. They don't care about that. So really interesting. That whole division. I mean, now you add the Rockies with Bryant to that division again. So now they're kind of back to having that, they always have that high profile third baseman for some reason in Colorado, whether it's, Arenado or him, or, Story's a shortstop, but he's played some third for them and different guys. So it's just interesting that something like that happens, and it's like the same positional thing over and over and over again. The White Sox, the White Sox are still right there, and they have a lot of young emerging talent that's only going to get better and better. We kind of all chuckled a little bit when La Russa came back, but last year, hey, that experience shined through. The experience of that guy in baseball. I mean, there's just absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, the guy knows baseball. He knows how to manage. And
I will be the first one to admit I was wrong about La Russa. I laughed about that. We talked about it on the air. I laughed about La Russa coming back, and yet I was wrong. He won the division with them, and they fell apart in the playoffs. But he's a baseball guy, and he knows what he's doing. So, hats off to the White Sox for bringing him back, and I wish him luck again this year.
Yeah, La Russa going up there almost he's 77, 78 now. So still doing it. But he's got a lot of talent. So for sure, I mean, you can understand why, there's not a lot of guys you can get that have more experience than him. So, but we'll see. Obviously the game has not passed him by. I mean, he had retired in 2011. So it's not like it was, eons ago, but in baseball terms, it is, that's, like that 10 years that he was gone, a lot happened. And the game did change a little bit. As far as the way that relievers are used and all that. But, Tony was always on the cutting edge of that when he was managing before. He was the one that was moving the pitcher around in the lineup when nobody else would do that. It was like, oh, no, he has to be ninth. And he's like, does he? Because if I pitch him eighth, I get an extra leadoff guy. Interesting.
That's right.
So he was doing all that.
First one to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So people forget. So really, I think, he's more on the cutting edge of what's next in baseball, other than being like, like a relic that's left behind, like some of the managers that couldn't adjust. And so, I get a lot of people that argue with me that Mike Scioscia was that way. I don't agree with that, but I understand. I get it. It seemed like that certainly at the end, that he just could not, and I get it, because I think he was right in some respects. I mean, I do think you look at analytics in the game and you use that information, but, not above, what and feel being out there. I don't think that you do that. I don't know. I mean, I know that teams do that, and like we just talked about with Snell and situations like that, but I just don't think that your win-loss sometimes is determined by other things like luck, as far as like injuries and things like that, and I think that really is what derailed a lot of that at the end. But I mean, when you build really good teams and then you don't get the you make investments and you don't get the return. For anybody that makes an investment, you don't get the return. Of course you're expecting to when you make a move, or when you start a season. So we'll see what happens with the moves and the seasons that we're about to see from teams like the Dodgers, the Braves. Acuna is going to be back at some point. Obviously, they felt comfortable moving on from Freddie Freeman because Acuna has become the face of the franchise. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt he has become the face of the franchise. I mean, Freddie was a fan favorite and was the face of the franchise there. What he did when he had COVID and when he came back and all that was just amazing. And then won the World Series, and now he gets to go where he wants. He's a Southern California guy. He misses it. I know how he feels. I was out in Ohio for a long time trying to figure out a way to get back to SoCal. So, it's something that, and when you have the kind of money these guys do,
I'm glad you're back.
Hey, when you have the kind of money those guys do, it's a lot easier choice. So, you can go where you want and where the quality of life is going to be the highest, because the phantom money in your bank account never runs out, right? And if you spend it wisely, I mean, and don't make stupid, silly decisions. Otherwise, this athlete can blow money like anybody else. So interesting.
When I knew that Freeman was going to sign with the Dodgers, I knew 3 days ago, because his wife has a Twitter account and she has a clothing line, and she was advertising her clothing line 30% off. And the photo was taken in Dodger Stadium. Clearly, Dodger Stadium was in the background. I saw that and I thought, oh, that's it.
I did see that picture.
Dodgers. Yeah.
I did see that picture. I think you shared that with me, and it was like, yeah, she looks pretty comfortable there. It's not hard. It's not hard to be comfortable in Los Angeles, guys. It's just not. It's not hard. If you want to be comfortable, you can find places for that in Los Angeles, Orange County. Hey, I mean, it's San Diego. It is what it is. I mean, you can find comfort there, but it's, it still doesn't mean anything. I mean, in baseball terms, when we get the season going, we'll see, I know we have a very short, compact little spring schedule, because baseball doesn't like starting seasons without some kind of tune-up, which, I get it. You want these guys in shape to some extent, and even only a few weeks isn't really that much, but, most of these guys stay in shape year round nowadays. A lot of them play winter ball and things and play in other leagues when, MLB is not going on. So it's not as big of a deal. But if there are guys that didn't do that, then they have some catching up to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stuff plays out. I mean, certainly there's still a lot more player movement that can occur. So we'll see. There's still some really big names out there. Where Story and Correa go are going to set precedents for where all these other guys go that are waiting for them to get paid, so they can see where's the money going to be, where it's going to come from, and what those contracts should kind of look like in reference to the steps below, the premier guys that get paid first and most. So, there's still a lot of movement that can occur. There's still pitchers out there being signed, relievers and starters. Not all of them are bad either. Some of them are actually pretty good. So they're still figuring all that stuff out. At some point, Billy Beane will probably sprinkle some little magical dust onto something out in the middle of the Coliseum, and that will turn into guys to replace the guys that he just traded. So, you know, at some point that will happen. And they also announced, I think the All-Star game's in, was it Dodger Stadium this year?
Yes, it is this year. Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Stadium. And they're going to have the draft, I believe, at the same time or the same weekend as well at Dodger Stadium. So, or right next to it or something, like right in that area, somewhere over there. While the events are going on that weekend, they will also have the MLB draft, which would be fun as well. So a lot to look forward to.
The last time that the All-Star game was at Dodger Stadium was in 1980, and I was there, and Jim Campanis was there. We didn't know each other yet. He was still a kid, but we have another couple mutual friends who were there at that All-Star game, and it goes down as the most boring All-Star game in history. 4-1 National League. Ken Griffey Jr. won the MVP just because he hit a home run. But J.R. Richard was a starter for the National League. And if nothing else, it was worth going to see that guy pitch. And, you know, I felt bad when he had a stroke.
Sr., right?
Yeah.
Griffey Sr.
Griffey Sr. I felt bad when J.R. Richard had a stroke and wasn't able to pitch anymore because that guy had talent. And, you know, his life went sideways and he passed, I think, last year about this time. But he was worth the price of admission just to watch him pitch those first 2 innings and strike out the side both innings. But yeah, we were all there, and we're all going to be there this season at Dodger Stadium for the All-Star game. I wanted to bring up something about La Russa for a second. Now, here's how smart he is. Okay. The A's were, when they hired him, they had a lot of players who were on the edge and, you know, maybe going to make it, maybe not, maybe they were done. One of them was Dennis Eckersley. And Dennis had been a starter, won 20 games, and La Russa made him a closer. Said, hey, you can be a closer. You can finish these games. And now you look at Eckersley, he made the Hall of Fame as a closer. The other one is my good friend Dave Stewart. Dave Stewart was on the verge of being released. He was a middle reliever for the A's. He wasn't there wasn't any place for him. La Russa put him in starting rotation. And then we all know what happened. 420 game seasons in a row, World Series rings with Oakland and Toronto. So, you know, you've got to be a smart baseball guy to make those kind of moves. And La Russa has proven it over and over again. So, again, I was wrong about him last year, and I wish him well with the White Sox again this year.
A lot of good free agents still out there, guys. Just to name a few of them, if you are not caught up because the lockout kind of deterred everything, which was fun. I would talk about the lockout more, but I'm just glad it's over. Honestly, I think we're all just really glad that that did not go on any longer than it already had, which already was too long. And just really glad that they got that worked out. I'm glad because it's there's not a whole lot of optimism until, those last couple weeks there. And it was kind of like, okay, these guys are both starting to understand how urgent this is. And they finally, came up with some stuff, but just some guys that are left out there. Center fielder Albert Almora is still a free agent. Jose Alvarez, relief pitcher, really good relief pitcher. Tyler Anderson is a starting pitcher. He's still out there. Brett Anderson, obviously, starting pitcher, is pretty good. He's out there. Chris Archer, very good starting pitcher, still out there. Jake Arrieta, I don't know if he's coming back. He's retiring. Dylan Betances, good reliever out of the bullpen. Brad Brock, another good one. Rex Brothers, another good reliever out of the bullpen. Struble Cabrera, infielder. Trevor Cahill, a starting pitcher, reliever. He's been with the Angels before. Matt Carpenter, second baseman. Nick Castellanos, really good right fielder. Used to be a third baseman for Detroit. He's a free agent. Starlin Castro is another third base, a second base type guy. Tyler Clippard, relief pitcher. Michael Conforto, right fielder. Carlos Correa, we talked about, shortstop. Johnny Cueto, starting pitcher, used to be on San Francisco, was a Royal a long time ago. Zach Davies, starting pitcher. Chris Davis, with a K, that used to be on the Oakland A's. He was released, and he is now a free agent. Delino DeShields Jr., center fielder. Ross Detweiler. So a lot of guys.
Wow.
there's even more than that. There's Adam Eaton. There's all kinds of guys. Jared Dyson, Mike Fiers, the pitcher that's been really famous for Astros not caring and all that. Brett Gardner, I think, is being brought back probably eventually here by the Yankees. They're probably just working out the language on the contract and all that. Brian Goody, I would love to see him go back to the Angels, but I don't think they need an outfielder right now. Billy Hamilton, Matt Harvey, who actually had a decent bounce back here with Baltimore last year. Tommy Hunter is another guy that's a reliever who's out there. Wade LeBlanc, starter. Jed Lowry, infielder. So Mitch Moreland, a DH in
my God.
DH league. Andrew Miller, a relief pitcher. Andrew Miller's really good. Joe Panic, Blake Parker, Yasmiro Petit, Tommy Pham is a great outfielder. Kevin Pillar. All these guys are free agents. Michael Pineda, all that kind of stuff. So
you could make a winning team just with this group of players.
Albert Pujols, Hansel Robles, the former closer of the Angels, is out there. I wouldn't mind seeing a little Hansel reunion. I like Hansel. A lot of good guys out there. Matt Shoemaker, another former starter for the Angels, who's pretty good. Joe Smith, former reliever for the Astros, Angels, Cubs. Underarm submarine pitcher. Joakim Soria is still pitching. He's like in his 40s, but he's still getting it done. Hunter Strickland is a guy that got into it with the Dodgers several different times.
Yeah.
And his own bullpen and Bryce Harper and different guys. Tony Watson, older reliever. Brandon Workman, younger guy. So there's all kinds of guys out there still. So until this kind of settles down a little bit, these guys have to all figure out what their 40-man, or I think they might have even changed that. It might even be like 41 or 42 now or whatever. But when they get their basic roster sets that is referred to as their 40-man rosters, usually they should be able to, get all this under control. And then we have a better idea of who's going to be competing, who's going to have what pitching strategy-wise. And then we'll see how it works out without the shifts. I don't think the shifts are going to like change life, but I think, one of the things that definitely, bothers you about the shifts the last few years is that balls that your whole life you've seen hit that are hits are being caught. And it just doesn't seem right. It just rubs you the wrong way. You're like, oh no, that's a hit. It's weird when you see like a shortstop out in right field and you're like, what is that guy doing over there? Like, unless it's Simba, because he does that anyway,
Yeah.
So, but when they're positioned there, like on purpose, it's like, So I don't know what to make of all that. I hope that all those hits come back and that we can, because the singles, there's singles in baseball. Teams only average 5 singles now. So one of the reasons why a lot of these games, are, weird is because there's never anybody on base. So it's just like, if you eliminate bunting and you're not hitting singles, like you're not going to hit a double or better every time you come up to the plate. Like it's not going to happen. You're only going to do that. Really good players can do that once or twice a game. If they're lucky, and they'll still not have it a couple times a week, like it's, baseball is the only game where failing is pretty good. So,
Yeah, that's got to change. That's got to change, the lack of singles. I didn't realize there were only 5 singles a game. That's how you move the runners around, you get them home, and bunting should be part of the strategy. It's just the game has changed, and it will continue to evolve, but it's changed right now to a point where old guys like me look at the game and go, wow, man, what is going on here?
Yeah. No, I definitely hear you. I mean, I feel like that a lot of times too, when, like when they did the rule changes for COVID and all that, I was like, I don't understand, like the 7-inning double headers. And I was just kind of, by the way, they got rid of that too. So there no more of that.
Yeah.
So thank God, baseball, it's like either, it's like when basketball doesn't have enough time, they don't play 3 quarters. You know what I mean? Like you just don't do that. You just don't do it. It's like you're either going to play 4 or you're going to postpone it until you can play 4, or, do it at a different time. Or if you have to cancel it, fine. We'd rather you cancel it than change the rules for a momentary, reason. So, it's just kind of one of those things where you look at kind of the totality of baseball, where it's headed. I mean, obviously they're trying to speed up the pace. They did this also when, because Big Papi used to get out. Big Papi used to literally walk around behind the plate for 50 seconds after like every pitch, especially in the postseason. he'd be looking around trying to surmise what the third baseman's doing and the third base coach. And then he'd look over at the first base coach and he'd look in the other team's dugout and he'd look at his dugout and he'd come back. He'd look at Manny. He'd communicate to a couple people in the stands and wave. And then he'd finally get back in the box. And you're like, ball two. We're like, what? Like, this is crazy. We can't do this every pitch, right? So they finally made it where you have to keep a foot in the box, even though if you look closely, a lot of guys still kind of get out of the box for a second and they'll kind of back up for a second. They allow it, they don't say anything. But a guy like Mike Trout steps a foot more than he's supposed to out of the box. You throw him out of the game, you're going to be hated, right? Like, you're not going to do that. So
yeah.
But certainly, I think they can still clean up the game a little bit. I think the umpires just being held accountable to do their jobs and to really, when they get a call wrong, they should have to explain what was wrong about it. Like, they should have to do something to ensure that, and I think umpires go a lot on emotion and instinct, and because they do it so often and have done it so much in their lives, they have automatic reaction points kind of set in because everything about life is about building a habit, right? You get used to something. So sometimes they have a quick trigger when they shouldn't. And things of that nature that I think that the game would be better off without. I always hate it when you see a guy like flinch, after like a strike's called, because he might be mad at himself, and then they throw him out because the umpire thinks he's trying to show him up, and it's like, this isn't about you. It's just kind of, it's one of those things sometimes. So that kind of stuff I wouldn't mind seeing kind of go the wayside. I mean, it's entertaining to some extent. When, you get a manager that comes out and he puts dirt all over the thing. I mean, Lou Piniella is like my favorite guy ever to watch argue with umpires. It's just hilarious. I don't know how Lou didn't have a heart attack every time he came out there, because every single time I was like, he's going any second it's going to happen. He's going to pop. He is literally going to pop, man.
I'll tell you the one thing that we've gotten letters about over the years, and it's something that's bothered me over the years. Armando Galarraga pitched a perfect game, and Jim Joyce was umpiring first and just blew the call. He even admitted he blew the call. So I don't know why Major League Baseball will not credit Galarraga with a perfect game. I really don't. And I have tons of letters from people, emails from people asking that same question. I doubt they're going to do it under Manfred, but that's something that should be looked at. That was a terrible call. Cost the guy a perfect game. And, who knows where Galarraga's career would have gone had he thrown that perfect game. So that's one of those things where the human factor comes into play. And the player paid the price for that.
Absolutely.
And I give Galarraga credit. He forgave Jim Joyce for doing that. And that was a big man of him to do that.
Yeah, that one was bad. I'll never forget watching that play, because I was actually watching. I think I had started watching that game earlier, and then I think I had stopped watching it probably to flip to the Angel game or something. And then I got like a notification, he's got a perfect game in the 7th inning or something. I flipped back to watch the last couple innings. And it was just like, he was in his zone. He was locating his pitches and stuff. His stuff wasn't overwhelming. The other team just wasn't really hitting that well. And so I remember, but he got that guy out. Clearly, it was like a ground out, and he clearly got the guy out. There was really no question about it at all, except to that umpire. So he was the only one that was like, had any question, and everybody else was looking around like, really? Are you sure?
Yeah,
bad. Really bad.
Miguel Cabrera was playing first, and it was ground ball to him, and he flipped it over to Galarraga, who touched the bag way ahead of the runner. And when the umpire called himself, Cabrera went nuts. He couldn't believe it. I'll always have that image in my mind. But, that's a black eye on baseball right there. Right there. I've got some feedback, actually. We haven't been on the air for quite a while since COVID. And we're just now getting back. And I think it's perfect timing. But I've got some feedback from some listeners we can wrap up with. Paul from Pittsburgh says, all these fans say they'll never come back to a baseball game, but spring training games are full house. MLB can treat the fans however it wants, and it will still be a multi-billion-dollar industry. What do you think about that, Benny?
I mean, to an extent, I don't think it can do whatever it wants. I think that's probably too far, but I think you've seen already the strategic ropes. But the truth is they call baseball America's pastime for a reason, and it's because it's really interwoven into the time and place that a lot of historical events in our country have happened. And that's also what made it so powerful to see in the movie renditions that you've seen on like Field of Dreams and all of that stuff, is because it plays to that emotion that we
Yes.
have to those moments as Americans and all, and so it really plays to that, the Peanuts and Cracker Jack, every kid, every son with his dad, with Little League and the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks, although, maybe not as common as it once was, because now a lot of kids are playing football or doing other things, but it's still, it's still a fabric part of the game. So I don't think they can do whatever they want and get away with it. And I think Manfred has a couple times kind of stepped on toes. And I think he's smart enough as a person. Like, he didn't get where he is by accident. Let's not kid ourselves. He's not a moron. He knows what he's doing. He
Yeah.
does this strategically. He's doing this stuff to get the stuff that the owners want. And the owners also know that if you give this now, you have to give X, Y, and Z later, right? They know where these paths lead. So it's
Right.
not like they don't understand where the players are trying to come from. I think it's just that I think Manfred sometimes is tone deaf to the room that he's in when he's talking, right? I think sometimes
Right.
he forgets. And I think that's his problem. And I think that's what could sink maybe him as like a commissioner, maybe at some point. But I think that if he continued to do that, but I was really impressed with how they got this done at the end. And I think Manfred saved a lot of face, because they kept trying to kind of make the players look bad. And, people understand that even though it's millionaires haggling with millionaires, that it's also employees arguing with an employer, which every common person who goes to a baseball game can understand, because most of us weren't ball players, right? So,
That's right.
and even the ones that were probably understand it more, Eric, like you and Jim and all these guys, right? So you get it too on a whole nother level, plus the fan level of everything ever since, right? So it's just interesting. I hope that baseball continues to stay on the path it's on as far as cooperation between the two sides. They put some stuff in the CBA that talks about when they have to get together to talk about different aspects more often and things,
Yeah.
which is great, because anytime you can bridge a gap, it's, but you're always going to have employees pushing for better benefits, better pay, fair rules. That's always going to happen, and when you have a union, it especially happens. And then it's a lot more of a haggle, and then you have stoppages and things like that. It's not like a normal employer, but hopefully they can just stay on a good path and get this worked out. And then we don't even have to go there.
Yeah. And I have a question from Ryan from San Francisco, and it kind of ties into what the previous writer, Paul, was saying. What happens in 10 years after 40% of the minor leagues have been eliminated and the draft has been shut way down for a decade, and lots of players are not playing, lots of great players are not playing? We'll never see a Mike Piazza again. What is the game going to be like then? And how will the fans be affected by it? Will it still be a national pastime, or will parents start to steer their kids towards other sports? That would be as a dad, that would probably be my inclination. So what do you think?
No, I mean, baseball is a game unto itself. And I think that if you love baseball, you love baseball. And I think you'll put up with a lot of things for things that you love. We all do it all the time. We all know somebody, and maybe don't even admit if it was us or whatever, right? You have that one friend that's in that toxic relationship and nobody really understands why they stay in it. But at the end of the day, you look at those two people together, and even though it doesn't seem to make sense all day, at the end of the day, they're happy and they're together, right?
Right.
So it doesn't always have to make perfect sense. So I think that that's what I think a lot of fans forget, is that comes from love. You love the game, right? It's different, and it's a different type of relationship. And for some people, it's more personal if you play it, or because you spend, people don't understand this, Eric, and you can go into this in more detail. All these fans that come out here and they say things, they don't understand that playing is just like, for you guys, it's like when an actor goes on stage. There's so much that leads up to that. Right. Yeah. And it's not just playing. So I think that that's also why it's hard sometimes for these sides to all understand each other. But I think that, I think guys like you and Jim and doing shows and stuff like we do, I think that really helps kind of bridge that gap where people go, oh, okay, because everybody's a human being. Everybody wants to make money and all of that. And just because you made millions doesn't mean you have millions. And just because you made millions doesn't mean that, you have other life skills that somebody who didn't play that game doesn't have. We're all good at something. And if you're good at something, then you enjoy it, and you're going to do that no matter what. Right.
Right, right. The one thing fans don't understand, and probably never will, is the amount of work you put in just to be able to play a 3-hour game. You probably put in 8 hours of work to be able to do that. And whether it's hitting off a tee or hitting a batting cage, practicing fielding, throwing, you don't just walk out on the field and play the game and, hey, we won, it's over. Ken Griffey Jr., who is one of the nicest guys that ever played the game, got very upset at Sports Illustrated back in 1990, I guess it was, when they had his picture on the cover and they referred to him as the natural. And he took offense to that because in the article, it kind of implied that he just got up every morning and went out and did his thing. And then, oh, it's time for baseball. Okay, I'll go out and play. And that was not the case at all. He grew up with a dad who was a major league player and taught him how to play, and they worked out every day. So, there is no such thing as a natural. It would be nice, but there isn't. And Ken Jr. took offense to that.
One of the best players of all time, by the way, guys, for those of you who didn't. If not for injuries, maybe you never know. I mean, if not for those injuries, I mean, he was, this is what scares me about Trout the last couple of years, is because it's like Griffey, where you start on this amazing hierarchy of like, you're going to be one of the top greats. And even if, Trout kind of continued and got injured more and more each year, still think, clearly his place is there. I mean, he's there no matter what, but it scares you to look at guys like Griffey and that, that can happen. If you Mike Trout takes all-time great care of himself, though, so I don't doubt that he has every opportunity. But it scares you when you see stuff like that. Eric, you were there in Seattle. You saw a lot of that stuff. I mean, obviously, Jim talks about having seen the stuff he did in practice and everything when he was after he was drafted and when he was the kid. But I'll never forget. One of the things that made me fall in love with baseball was watching Ken Griffey Jr. and that swing and just his pulsating vibrance. Just in his aura to the media, and he blew that team in Seattle up and got it to where it is today. I mean, really, people don't realize that, A-Rod was big there for a minute in between, like when he left, and then they still had A-Rod for a second, and then he goes to Texas. But I mean, Griffey, they had other great players, but not on his level. They just didn't have guys that were there. I mean, A-Rod is a guy that ultimately you could argue in his career was, right around there, whether cheating or what, not cheating. But also, one thing about Griffey that nobody ever says that about him. They don't. And he was right in the middle of that era. He would be one of the number one guys, right, in that era that you want to look at that had power numbers, but nobody says about him. Why? Because everybody could see how special he is and how special his swing is, and that he didn't need anything. He just didn't need it. He's just that good,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's apparent that he didn't use anything during his career. It's a shame that it ended the way it did. But what a great player. One of the things that made me like him, his rookie year, he was making those amazing catches in the outfield. And a couple times, he ran out, leaped up, and grabbed the ball over the wall, came back down, and was smiling and laughing. He was utterly having pure joy playing the game. And, that made me happy. I love seeing guys like that.
Well, and, one of the things people try to use as a criticism against Griffey, because obviously then he ended up in Cincinnati. And when he was in Seattle, they had a couple good clubs when they had, Tino and Edgar and, Boone and all those guys. But they just couldn't quite get there no matter what their regular season record was. And they had Randy Johnson too, by the way, and some other guys that were really good, Jay Buhner on that team. Yeah. But, he just never could get it done. But one of the things that's incorrect that I see that a lot of fans say is they say, well, Junior never could do it in the postseason. And that's actually not true. If you go back and look, he had a series against the Yankees. It was one of the all-time great series that a player had. He had a great series, and he actually had the game-winning hit, I think, in one of the pivotal games there. I can't remember the hit and the situation, but you can look that up on YouTube. Ken Griffey Jr. against the Yankees in the playoffs. I think it might have been the ALDS, or I don't think it was the championship series, but it may be. I can't remember now, but. Yeah, he had a great series. So, I don't think pressure was a problem for Ken Griffey. He's one of these guys that's just born with his his blood not able to boil. Like no matter what the
Yeah.
situation is, he just rises to the occasion and it doesn't exceed his heart rate. It's like he's always calm. And it's like Anthony Rendon is like that, and Mike Trout's like that, where
Yeah.
people try to say that Mike Trout's not like that, but look at what opportunities has he had to really do anything. I mean, not really. He ran into one of the hottest teams of all time in Kansas City Royals, and they wouldn't pitch to him. So what was he supposed to do? They didn't pitch to him the whole game, the whole series. They didn't pitch to him at all, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't pitch to him either. So
Right.
I wouldn't have done. And they had no protection at that time. It was just Pujols basically, and Pujols was on the downside. Even though he had a decent year that year, they wouldn't pitch to him either. So they wouldn't pitch to either one of them. They're like, nope. So that's what you do in the playoffs. But that's why a deep lineup like what the Dodgers did, Eric, is so important to add a guy like Freeman. And now they're not Cody Bellinger dependent like in some previous years where that hurt them a little bit, where if he wasn't on, it was tough, because especially in the outfield, because they didn't have other power hitters out there. They had other guys that were good in the outfield, but they just weren't great power hitters other than Jock maybe. But Jock it took him a while to get there, So
yeah, Cody Bellinger is the big question mark for the Dodgers. He had obviously the Rookie of the Year season. Then he came back the next year and had just an average season. A good season for a lot of players, but not very good for him. Then he came back and won the MVP with a monster year. And then the COVID year happened. He broke his leg and had all those issues. Then in 21, he just did not ever seem to get uncorked. And so it's going to be interesting to see this year, can he be consistent? Can he start getting back to where he was when he first came up? And if he doesn't, I don't expect to see him in a Dodger uniform very long.
No, he's got a 1-year kind of prove it deal, which I'm sure they mutually agreed to that. And, he's had some back issues and some other issues, which I think anybody that watched him, especially early in his career, swinging is not, I've been saying it for years. Like it just looks uncomfortable to me to watch him bat, because it's just like, what, like the mechanism and like the way he turns his hips, it's almost like it's not a natural motion, which it should be, because your hips turn, so to me, it doesn't make sense the way that he kind of like rips the ball and kind of torques his body to do it like in a weird way. Just seems like that's not really necessary, but hey, what do I know? Right. So, I mean,
but I never noticed that until you mentioned it during one of our shows a couple of years ago. And I started watching him, and my back gets sore now when I watch Cody Bellinger hit. It really does.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird because, I don't think the league like figured him out or anything. I think he just hasn't been healthy. And I don't know if it's that, or if it's that he's just trying too hard to do things to get away from doing that. And now, he's losing the effectiveness in hitting because he learned that way or whatever. So that happens a lot with NBA guys. When they have one shooting thing they do their whole life and then they get to league and they try to change it. It's like, well, if it's worked this far and you got into the NBA, you might as well not change it because it's working, right? I mean, to some extent, right? And you can still get fouled and there's other things you can do, right? And in baseball, you can get on base, but the problem is that's just not Bellinger's role on that team. And it wasn't for a long time. It was to drive in runs, not to get on base, right? Because they didn't have guys that could drive in runs behind him until, people now go, well, they have Mookie, but they think about when they didn't get Mookie until just recently, right? They didn't have those guys. They had, they were relying on Turner to drive him in if he got in, and they were relying on Seager and these guys, right? And at that time, those guys were not the guys they are now. Right. That they became that during this transition of kind of power from really Bellinger to them stepping up, and then the Dodgers supplementing that with other pieces, right, in different ways. Right. So hopefully I think he'll bounce. I mean, look, you add a guy like Freddie Freeman to your lineup. I mean, the last thing they're thinking about now is Cody Bellinger in that lineup. They're thinking, I got to get through the top 5 guys before I start worrying about anybody else. So, you've got all kinds, I have Trey Turner. Oh, good. You don't have to worry about Trey Turner getting on base, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, you do have to worry about him getting on base. He's going to get on base almost every single time, right? What are you going to do? You still have Taylor, who can play anywhere and will play anywhere. Anybody literally goes out anywhere on the field, and guess what? That's him. He's right over there. So Taylor, he's going to be there. He's the do everything guy. And then they've still got Turner to fill in at third and first and DH now also. That's an underrated thing. Think about everything the Dodgers did the last couple of years, their records. Think about how good they hit the ball. Okay. Now think about this. Think about that same situation, those same scenarios, those same wins. And imagine if every time the pitcher hit, they had somebody really good hitting instead on top of all of that in the National League, right? Think
And
about
that's going
that.
to
They
happen
might not
now.
lose.
Yeah.
They might not lose a game. They might not lose a game. It's possible. They
Yeah.
added Duffy. Duffy's like starter number 8. So I don't know what he's going to do for them, but if anything happens, he's there. So I guess that's the scenario, right? So it's going to be interesting. I mean, certainly you got to give Dodgers the credit when they have something and they see a line, they go for it, you know? So
yeah. And they still got
it.
AJ Pollock.
For what? I don't know what he's going to do, but he's probably he's probably the equipment guy or something at this point. But I don't know. I mean, he might play. He might get on the field a little bit. Maybe. Well, because now they have to play Well, I guess Bellinger could just DH. They could just DH a lot of Bellinger and play him matchup wise. But see, that's the thing about Bellinger. You never said this 5 years ago that you play him matchups or righty lefty, right? You would have played him against everybody. So they got to figure that out. This guy's still, God, what is he, Eric? He can't be more than 27 maybe, if that.
26.
I mean, he's
26.
Yeah, still. So he's not like, we're looking at him like he's Kershaw, you know what I mean? Like where he's at the end of an illustrious career. And I mean, he's had a good career, but I mean, it's just kind of sad to see him already kind of at the same point of Kershaw. Guy is 10 years older than him, you know?
It really
weird.
is.
I hope he can figure that out.
One last comment here from a listener, and then we can sign it off. Mark from Austin, Texas. Okay. In the end, the players got very little. The owner's strategy worked, and the players really lost out in this collective bargaining agreement. I don't necessarily think I agree with that. The players got a lot of what they wanted. When you go into these negotiations, you know you're going to ask for more than what you're going to get. And that's what happened. You know, the owner's main thing was no cap, no salary cap. You know, the tax, things like that. They wanted more time before someone becomes a free agent. That didn't happen. So in the end, I think both sides got a lot of what they wanted. Not everything, but they worked it out enough to where they're able to, you know, play the game now and negotiate next time in good faith. So I don't know. What do you feel about that?
I think they hammered out a deal that the players actually made a lot of progress in this deal because this isn't a deal that just like got done right now. They've been working on this for like 5 or 6 years. From the time the old collective bargaining agreement got done, they work kind of slowly toward the next one, right? So it's not as much of an immediate focus as it is like at the end when you're at a deadline and you're going to have a lockout and all that. But it is they kind of slowly kind of talk about, the next issues and all of that. They have a bunch of committees that do all this stuff, Eric, as you know, and all this kind of stuff. So I don't even know the ins and outs of all that. And I won't try to speak like I know what I'm talking about with all that stuff because I don't. But they've done the groundwork is what I'm trying to say. And so, I think that they've made some good progress. I think if you look at the rules and stuff that they were able to get kind of the owners to bend in their direction a little bit as far as compensation, future stuff, and the ability to have maneuverability for future agreements, I think it actually was pretty good, and I'm really glad it got done. And hopefully this just sets a precedent for good communication, no matter what the deal is. Both sides want to feel good, and I think this, I think they both felt good enough. I would say not great, but they felt good enough. And they were like, do we both really need an overwhelming victory where we have our hand up and we're on the top of Valhalla claiming victory over our opponent? I think they finally stopped doing that for a second, MLB, especially their side, and finally said, you know what are we doing? We're not opponents, and that's really true. I mean, in a labor negotiation you are, but really for the game to grow and for them all to get more money and all the things they want, they have to work together. And so whether they, see it that way, I think some of them do. I think a lot of them do, most of them probably. And some of them are kind of like, well, we're the owners and we're the ones with all the money and that's the way it is, whether you like it or not, that's reality. And I think that that's a dangerous thought process, but I think those owners are becoming fewer and further between, and you're getting more people like the new Dodgers ownership groups and other groups like that around the league now that are buying up these teams. But if you buy up a team now, Eric, it's not like it used to be. It's not a little market team where, watching, I've been watching Winning Time where like Jerry Buss gets this money together and buys the Lakers in 1979, it's not like that anymore. These are multi-billion-dollar teams now. So they're, huge operations from every aspect of what they do. Some are ran better than others. Some have better and deeper pockets than others based on ownership and other things, market size, all those kinds of things, resources they have. So it's not a perfect science, and I think people forget that. You can't really have a hard cap in baseball. It's not good for the game. I don't think that it's good for the game. Would it even the playing field a little bit? Yeah. But I think eventually just the fact that you're going to get more and more owners, that the world is going away from the market idea. The world is so connected now that pretty soon the size of the market you're in is not going to be the only thing that dictates that, because there's so many other ways to make money now with media relations. When you have a great game, it gets out everywhere. It's not like when, Eric, to give, when Tom Seaver used to pitch a great game, on a Tuesday night in Milwaukee, and only people in Milwaukee heard about it. You know what I mean? Yeah, so right. It's not like that anymore. So I think eventually it's just going to continue to open up further and further and further with the game. Now they're talking about international draft, and there's good and bad things about that. But at the same time, if they continue to grow the game, they'll continue to find new ways to get talent. They'll continue to find new ways to get revenue stream. And they'll continue to come together. And if they just have the mindset of we work together instead of trying to conquer the other guy on Valhalla, I think they'll continue to move in a good direction for the game.
Yeah, I agree. And Mark and Austin, my answer to you is maybe in your view, the players didn't get very much, but baseball has been around for over 100 years, 150 years, whatever. It will continue. The game will continue because it is our national pastime. I know that my year is built around spring, waiting for spring, because baseball's coming and there's possibilities for all teams, and I get to watch games. And in the wintertime, no kidding, I do exactly what Rogers Hornsby did. I sit out the window, look out the window, and wait for spring. So there's a lot of people like me, and, it will continue to be.
They got Manfred to compromise, Eric. And, they got him to also give them a full season after he had already canceled the first two series. So they got him to go back on his own word to make this happen, to show that MLB was serious about getting the deal done. And it wasn't all just posturing. So I think the players won in that regard. Not, I don't mean they won the whole negotiation, but I mean, I think they won in progress in the ways that matter, which aren't necessarily the right now materials, the material topics being discussed. I think really what it is that they won in future momentum of cooperation, because that will go a long way, I think, because both sides were willing to give, and it wasn't just the players feeling like we're going up to daddy and daddy keeps saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, guys, send more stuff to the mailbag. Oh, I was going to say, just send it to the mailbag. What is it? Doctor of Baseball on Twitter, Eric?
Yes. And Eric Lenneberg on Facebook. I have one last request, and I've had it from several people. Now, Benny, as well as me, Rickey Henderson stories are legendary in baseball. Rickey talked in the third person, he referred to himself as Rickey. And several people have asked me that if we get back on the air, to tell a Rickey story every show. So I'm going to try to do that. Campy does it better than me. So when he's with us, we'll have him do it. But I've got dozens of Rickey stories that are true. And it's laughable, what he's done. So, and we're talking about the greatest leadoff hitter of all time, by the way.
Greatest base stealer, greatest runner of the bases. Yeah, not even close.
Yeah.
And he earned it. And by the way, that was not a record that was highly attainable either. That was not a record that was easy to get. So he definitely did it. And he did it really, the last part of it, he was searching for it. He was trying to find it, and then he stayed around for a while afterwards to kind of put it out there where nobody could really touch it.
Yeah.
So, and especially now, because guys don't really steal bases, even though they're talking about, we're going to have bigger bases. We didn't talk about that, but bases go up to 18 inches instead of 15, which has been traditional for, I don't even know how long. As long as I can remember, it's been 15. So interesting. So
That's going to
apparently it
be
prevents.
interesting to see how it affects the game.
Yeah, they've said in the minor leagues it prevents a lot of collisions because there's more room on both sides, obviously, to maneuver for, you know, the defender and the and the and the guy that's on the base pass. I think what they forget is that a lot of these collisions are intentional.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't think that's going to matter. In fact, I think I think in a way, if you really think about it, a lot of the collisions that happen on the bases, some guy slid way out of the base path. And if you increase the size of the base, it's just going to give him a better argument to do that, right? Like,
Yeah,
and go
right.
further. So I don't know that I 100% think, I mean, I get in the minors, it probably was working, but those guys are trying to get to a certain level and obey all the rules. And when you're in the MLB, you make millions of dollars and you no longer care about the rules. So it's just kind of like, I mean, you know, it's just in generality, but
yeah.
Right. So we do miss Campy, Jim Campanis Jr. Guys. If you haven't bought it, go on Amazon right now and get Born Into Baseball. BornIntoBaseball.com is his website as well, which is a book about all the Campanis family. If you didn't know, Al Campanis is the former GM of the Dodgers, and Jim Sr. also played catcher and was actually traded by his own dad, which is an interesting story that you can read about in Born Into Baseball.
That's right.
So that's all in there. So Eric, what else? What else do we have? Or we can sign off for now. By the way, guys, Eric doing the show from Arizona. I'm in sunny San Diego right now. If you didn't catch that from the sweatshirt I was showing earlier, don't worry, Angels fans. I'm going to be up in Anaheim very soon as well for some game action and to hang out and all that. By the way, guys, Benny Bam, you can always catch me Angels Baseball Addicts, which is available pretty much on just about anything at this point. So Facebook, Twitter, wherever you have social media, there's probably an Angels Baseball Addicts version somewhere near you. So. Probably. So
Instagram
somewhere around there, Eric. And what do you got going on, Eric? What's next? Are we still doing voiceover stuff, or what's up?
Yeah, we are. I'm going through some personal issues right now, health issues. So once those are resolved, I'll be back to normal, and we'll be doing this every week. In the meantime, next week we can be on the air. After that, I've got a little bit of time where I won't be available, but never worry about me. Believe me, I'm not going to succumb to anything. So I'll leave you with that.
Mr. Tough Guy. And I say that in a very non-facetious and very serious way. Eric, real tough guy. You've been in a lot of situations that I think a lot of other people would have not been able to handle. And I have no doubt that whatever comes your way, life's going to see more of that from you and get a big surprise when it tries to do anything to the contrary as far as getting experience face-to-face with your PhD. So good luck life trying to do anything to Eric, because you're going to reap what you sow in that regard. Right. So awesome stuff,
thank you,
guys.
Benny. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and there's definitely no mistaking that Eric Lindberg baseball acumen either, guys. So we're always really happy to have Eric. We're always really happy to have Jim. We're always really happy to have all the friends and partnerships that have come from doing shows like Halo Heat and The Backstop, and these guys, you know, in their whole baseball careers and life before that, and of course, and me being able to be even a small part of it, hosting and doing other things to kind of try to bring some of this knowledge out and help us grow the game. That's always been the goal on all these shows that I know that for me and that I'm a part of, is to try to milk all that knowledge, since I'm not the one that played, right? So I can milk it. I can be the person that gets that knowledge from point A to point B and helps people understand the game better. And that's always the goal. And I hope that as long as we do the backstop, that continues to be the case, guys. Benny Bam coming at you strong. Eric Lindberg, the Velvet Voice. I'm out. Eric, parting words?
Just have a great week, everyone, and we will talk with you soon.
Send stuff to Eric, guys, on Twitter, DR of Baseball.
Yep.